live in interesting times. Today's stories. In Davos, a teen climate activist says it is time to get angry. Erdogan and Putin vow closer cooperation on Syria. Migrants are evicted after Salvini's decision to close a large reception center. Peru, Ecuador, Argentina back Juan Guaido as Venezuela's interim president. President Trump recognizes as well Venezuela's Guaido as interim president. Venezuela's Maduro expels the U.S. delegation. President Trump says Pelosi's canceling the State of the Union is a disgrace. Federal workers struggle to pay bills as government shutdown continues. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history is taking its toll on individuals, families, and communities. Plus, the Church of Christ donates to the Safe Harbor homeless shelter in Red Deer, Canada. Hello everyone, I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. 16-year-old Swedish activist Greta Thunberg arrives in Davos for the World Economic Forum and appears dead set in her mission to spur action against global warming. She is demanding leaders to do whatever it takes to adhere to the Paris Climate Agreement targets of limiting global temperature rises to well below 2 degrees Celsius or 3.6 Fahrenheit and beneath a safer threshold of 1.5 Celsius, if at all possible.
Young people need to realize that their future is at risk, and they need to do something about that and get angry and then transform that anger into action. I traveled here by train, and that I'm doing because I've stopped flying because of climate reasons, because I don't want to say one thing and then do another thing. I want to practice as I preach, and the trip here took about 32 hours, I think, from Stockholm to Davos. No, I don't think the people in power are going to act and do anything here, because why should they? When we have to make them actually do something, because they can't just continue doing like this. They have access to all the information, and they have known exactly what priceless values they have been sacrificing to continue making unimaginable amounts of money.
Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan at a meeting in Moscow on Wednesday vowed to coordinate their actions more closely in Syria.
У нас общее убеждение в том, что мы должны совместно продолжить борьбу с террористами, где бы они ни находились, в том числе и в Идлибской зоне.
Bilhassa iki lider olarak Sayın Putin ve şahsımın gayretleriyle mevcut işbirliğimiz gün geçtikçe güçlenmektedir. Amerika Birleşik Devletleri'nin çekilme kararı üzerinde değerlendirmeler yaptık. Türkiye ve Rusya işbirliği Suriye'nin barış, güvenlik ve istikrarı açısından bir mihenk taşıdır.
At the start of their meeting in the Kremlin, Putin addressed Erdogan as dear friend, saying that their countries work on issues of regional security and actively cooperate on Syria. Erdogan used the same term for Putin and said, quote, "Our solidarity makes a weighty contribution to the security of the region." The two leaders are on opposite sides of the Syria conflict. Russia provides critical support to the Syrian government, while Turkey has backed rebel groups fighting President Bashar al-Assad's forces. Despite this, they have worked closely to find a political solution to the 7-year conflict. Russia and Turkey have agreed to coordinate ground operations in Syria following U.S. President Donald Trump's shock announcement last month about pulling 2,000 American troops out of Syria. Putin said that if carried out, the withdrawal of U.S. troops from northeastern Syria will be a positive step. It will help stabilize the situation in this restive area. Turkey also has welcomed Washington's planned withdrawal, but the future of U.S.-backed Kurdish militia forces, labeled terrorists by Ankara, has upset ties between the NATO allies. Erdogan had said on Monday he would discuss with Putin the creation of a Turkish-controlled security zone in northern Syria, suggested by Trump. The U.S.-allied Kurds who control much of the north have rejected the idea, fearing a Turkish offensive against territory under their control. Putin said Wednesday that Russia supports establishing dialogue between Damascus officials and representatives of the Kurds. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov last week said that Damascus must take control of the north. In Italy, asylum seekers at the second-largest reception center are being forced to leave without notice and are being dispatched to other centers across the country.
La cosa più brutta è che si parla di decreto sicurezza. Io non parlerei di sicurezza. Purtroppo secondo me a breve, tra qualche mese, verrà fuori tutto questo casino che stanno creando volutamente, perché in realtà hanno distrutto un qualcosa che funzionava benissimo.
Io sto quasi 2 anni qui, questa situazione è molto difficile perché senza notizia, senza niente, non lo so dove sto andando, non lo so quando parto, questo è il problema.
Peru, Ecuador, and Argentina, among others, announced their support for Juan Guaido, the head of Venezuela's opposition-controlled legislature, after he declared himself interim president in open defiance of Nicolas Maduro. Peruvian Foreign Ministry tweeted, as translated to English, Peru's government recognizes and backs National Assembly President Juan Guaido, who assumed today as president in exercise of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela because of the illegitimacy of the Nicolas Maduro regime. Lenin Moreno, president of Ecuador, recognizes as well Guaido as Venezuela's interim president.
En ese sentido, la República del Ecuador reconoce como presidente interino de Venezuela al señor presidente de la Asamblea Nacional, Juan Guaidó. Ecuador augura que el nuevo presidente interino, en el marco de la ley, llame a la brevedad posible a elecciones libres y transparentes, con amplia observación internacional, e inaugure así una nueva era de prosperidad democrática y de fraternidad en su país.
Following major regional players, Brazil, Colombia, Chile, and Peru, who all gave their backing to Guaido's self-proclamation as Venezuela's acting president, Argentine President Mauricio Macri also announces support for Guaido. Macri tweeted, as translated in English, "I want to express my support for the decision of Venezuela's National Assembly President Juan Guaido, recognizing him as interim president of that country." Coming up, President Trump recognizes Venezuela's Guaido as interim president. Venezuela's Maduro expels the U.S. delegation. Trump says Pelosi's canceling the State of the Union is a disgrace. Federal workers struggle to pay bills as government shutdown continues. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history is taking its toll on individuals, families, and communities. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will be right back. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Brazil and the United States led several regional governments in backing the head of Venezuela's opposition-controlled parliament after he declared himself interim president Wednesday in open defiance of Nicolas Maduro. President Donald Trump tweeted, "The citizens of Venezuela have suffered for too long at the hands of the illegitimate Maduro regime. Today, I have officially recognized the president of the Venezuelan National Assembly, Juan Guaido as the interim president of Venezuela. Trump said in a separate statement that Guaido's National Assembly was the only legitimate branch of government duly elected by the Venezuelan people. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro also tweeted, "Brazil recognizes Mr. Juan Guaido as Venezuela's interim president." He wrote, "Brazil will support politically and economically the process of transition so that democracy and social peace return to Venezuela." He sent the post from the Swiss ski resort of Davos, where he and other Latin American leaders were attending the World Economic Forum. Canada, Colombia, and Peru also gave their backing to Guaido, dramatically raising the stakes over Venezuela, the oil-rich nation that has become deeply impoverished under Maduro, who is allied with Russia. The U.S. said it stood ready to us all options if Maduro tries to quash the opposition to his rule, an implied threat of military force. Bolsonaro, a far-right former paratrooper who has set about forging close ties with U.S. President Donald Trump's administration since taking power at the beginning of January, has repeatedly vowed to challenge Maduro in any way he can. He initially said he was open to discussing Brazil hosting a U.S. military base before changing his mind when the idea sparked objections from his military brass. Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro announced on Wednesday he was breaking off diplomatic ties with the United States after counterpart President Donald Trump acknowledged opposition leader Juan Guaido as the South American country's interim president. Maduro said, quote, "I've decided to break diplomatic and political relations with the imperialist government of the United States."
En este día histórico de reafirmación de la soberanía, afirmar la nota diplomática dándole 72 horas para que abandone del país todo el personal diplomático y consular de los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica en Venezuela.
As the U.S. government remains partially shut down, President Donald Trump says that the canceling of the State of the Union address by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is a, quote, disgrace, and calls out radical Democrats.
The State of the Union speech has been canceled by Nancy Pelosi because she doesn't want to hear the truth. She doesn't want the American public to hear what's going on. And she's afraid of the truth. And the super left Democrats, the radical Democrats, what's going on in that party is shocking. So Nancy Pelosi, knowing these facts and knowing it's something that she can't win, that she just went out and said, let's cancel for the first time in the history of our country, let's cancel the State of the Union address. And it's a disgrace.
U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Wednesday rejected President Donald Trump's insistence that he delivers his State of the Union speech next week in Congress, setting up an unsettling clash among Washington's power elite. The spat about where the annual political set piece will be staged is a sideshow to the struggle between the White House and Democrats in Congress over partial government shutdown, now on its 34th day. Traditionally, the speech scheduled for next Tuesday is given by the president in the ornate chamber of the House of Representatives to a joint session of the Senate and House. Trump wrote to Pelosi that it would be so very sad for our country if the State of the Union were not delivered on time, on schedule, and very importantly, on location. Pelosi, who has become the face of Democratic opposition to Trump in Congress, has said the president should consider giving the speech elsewhere because the shutdown means that security would be problematic. She also suggested that he deliver the speech to Congress in written form. Shortly after Trump's letter, Pelosi wrote back informing the president that the House would not authorize the speech in the chamber until government has opened. Pelosi said, "Again, I look forward to welcoming you to the House on a mutually agreeable date for this address when government has been opened." Although Pelosi cited practical difficulties caused by the shutdown, the White House sees her move as part of a game of one-upmanship. Trump's letter Wednesday declared there are no security concerns. He wrote to Pelosi, "I look forward to seeing you." But the speaker stood firm, rejecting Trump's demand. The shutdown, in which some 800,000 federal employees have been left without pay for a month, was triggered by Trump's refusal to sign funding bills in December. This was in retaliation against the Democrats' refusal to approve funds for extending walls along the U.S.-Mexico border. President Trump says he will not reopen government before his wall funding comes through, leaving thousands of people, including FBI agents and airport security workers, waiting for paychecks. As of Thursday, President Trump decided to wait till the government shutdown ends before he delivers the State of the Union address. Federal employees, their unions, and other organizations hold a silent protest in the Hart Senate building to call for an end to the partial government shutdown, now on its 34th day. Some employees struggling to pay their bills have used all of their savings, and others even have to cut back on medical expenses.
More food banks, they need paychecks. No more.
We work hard for our money. We work hard to make sure that the American people are safe, that we produce quality work. And for us to get zero pay is a disservice, and it's heartbreaking to not be able to tell my 9-year-old if he's going to have food or be able to do extracurricular activities because I have no paycheck.
Well, the only medication I cannot pay for is my children's solution for their asthma machine. And they're supposed to have it every 4 hours. So I've been giving it to them, not how I'm supposed to give it to them.
A lot of people are saying, well, why didn't you save up your money for, for this to happen? Or you signed up for this. I remember some congressman said, oh, you signed up for this. I'm sorry, I don't recall signing. When I put my hand up and said I was going to defend the Constitution as a service employee, that I agreed to be furloughed at will.
U.S. Senate leaders have agreed to vote Thursday on competing proposals to end a government shutdown now in its second month, but the chances are slim that either will reopen federal agencies. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and top Democrat Chuck Schumer announced an agreement on the Senate floor Tuesday for a pair of test votes. The first would be a procedural step on a measure that funds all shuttered branches of government through September and includes President Donald Trump's demand for border wall funding and his proposal on immigration policy. A second vote would be on a stopgap measure that funds government until February 8 to allow for debate over border security and immigration, while also letting Trump's upcoming State of the Union address before Congress proceed. It also would include disaster relief money already passed in the House. Each proposal would require 60 votes to advance in the 100-member body, a high threshold given the current level of partisan rancor over who is to blame for the shutdown. Eagle News spoke with some members of the community across the nation as they shared with us how this government shutdown is affecting their neighborhoods and, for some furloughed federal employees and families, their day-to-day life. Take a look. With some 800,000 federal employees going without pay for more than a month now, some have it a little better than others. Their spouse or other family members still have their sources of income. This, though, doesn't mean they aren't being frugal on their spending.
We are a dual income family, and my wife is currently working. But because I have not received a paycheck for the last couple times, we needed to tap into our reserve funds. We have to be a little bit more conservative. When we purchase things, it's stuff that we truly need and not stuff that we want. So hoping that the situation that we're in will be resolved soon, and then I'll go on and go back to work, finally get paid, and then continue to provide for my family.
I've been working for the government for about 17 years now. I have gone through numerous government shutdowns before. However, as this shutdown has been the longest in history, the impact is very much felt by myself, my family, and I'm sure by many government employees. My household had been fortunate as my wife is still working. One thing about the shutdown that we as a family have to go through is to be mindful of our expenses. Pretty much just like saving for the rainy days, so to speak. We need to make sure that we don't spend our savings on unnecessary expenses and be frugal when it comes to our spending decisions. I hope that this government shutdown ends soon, very soon.
The furloughed federal employees are without a doubt the victims of this shutdown, but affected as well are the spouses and children who are not only feeling the economic pinch, but also the emotional stress brought about by the crisis.
My mom is actually a federal worker, currently furloughed, and it's been pretty difficult with me and my family to provide rent and all that for the house that we're in right now. Just last week, my mom kind of sent me a text and she told me, please try to save as much as you can. We don't know how long this shutdown will be. And, it's just us two at home. And, we have to make sure we can make ends meet. We can pay rent and all that. Yeah, we just have to make sure we can survive this. Yeah, it's been pretty hard,
It really hits home because my husband was furloughed and he doesn't have a job. So we are missing one paycheck in the household, and it's really affecting us. It affects everything that we need to spend money on, things that we need for our family, the necessities, paying our bills.
The shutdown is affecting the nation, and people across the country are expressing frustration over it.
It's kind of unfair. They're not getting paid, so a lot of them will lose maybe their homes. They'll be out on the streets. Because I know for me, myself, if I were to be affected by the government shutdown, my family and I will be out on the streets definitely. And it's unfair because it's not only the workers, it's also the children that are suffering from the government shutdown.
Very concerning. I mean, that's a lot of people first, but more importantly, the fact that these are the people that we're currently relying on because it's the government, so our infrastructure, our rules, regulations, all that. The fact that that's being placed as a halt, just to, I don't know, prove a point, as a bargaining chip. Very distasteful, but nevertheless, I hope that this gets resolved as soon as possible so that they could go back to work, feed their families.
This government shutdown is sad and unfortunate to the thousands of people involved. This is a bullying tactic by President Trump at best. His funding plans have altered during his presidency from being fully funded by Mexico, then being indirectly funded by Mexico, and now he's demanding more funding from the government and is backed into a corner. It shows that he's willing to sacrifice the livelihood and well-being of thousands of American families to get what he wants. People are without paychecks but still have bills to pay. I think the shutdown will have long-lasting effects even after it's over. This is unfair and hurtful to the American people.
How I feel? I feel shame on the president for punish the innocent. They have nothing to do with this shutdown. He's the one that decided the shutdown. He's the one who should reopen and let the people go back to work so they can do their job and get paid and support the family.
But I sympathize with everybody, because it's not fair to them. They've sacrificed a lot for the government, and the government just turning their back on them and not caring anything about them. And it's not fair. It's not America. Simple.
It is not in the best interest of the United States as a whole, and I think that those that are empowered should consider that instead of catering to the whims of the individual that seems to be calling the shots. Look at the overall effect that it's having on the country and make a decision that's going to better the country. I understand that, it's being used as a tool to force them to release the money necessary to build a wall that they believe will protect our individuals that live here in the U.S., but at the same time, you're hurting individuals now, so it doesn't make sense. I know they said there's a lot of criminal element coming in, but there's way more criminal element being born here in the States that I think that will ever sneak into the United States. So in that regard, I don't feel that it's justified to make so many suffer just because of something that, honestly, I don't think is going to have a very large effect on us at all anyway.
We feel for them. It could have been us, like all of our workers as well. But this is just, not fair to the federal workers that are being affected, and it's all because of dysfunction in Washington, D.C.
It makes me wonder how one person can take over and do all this. Is Trump, is he really hurting any? Or is it more of a prideful thing that he really wants? How long is it going to take before he lets his pride down and actually realizes why he took presidency, and that's to take care of the people?
Reporting from Washington, D.C., I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot, 1 with 25.
Canadian farmers are feeling the effects of the U.S. government shutdown. This time of year, while farm fields like this in Western Canada are covered in snow, farmers are inside studying market trends and agricultural forecasts from other parts of the world, especially the United States. But that information is hard to come by these days. The main source of that data is the United States Department of Agriculture. Because of the shutdown, the department has delayed releasing reports that farmers rely on for crop planning. This is the time of year when farmers start making decisions on what they're going to plant and what seeds and other crop inputs they need to buy. Marketing reports tell farmers what world demand is for various crops and where countries such as China plan to buy from. For example, if China were to commit to buying mainly American soybeans, Canadian farmers would probably opt for an alternative crop such as corn instead. If the shutdown drags on for much longer, Canadian farmers will have a tough time making informed decisions. Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News, I'm 1 with 25.
The Church of Christ donates to the Safe Harbor Homeless Shelter in Red Deer, Canada. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly. This is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot. Helping fight hunger in Canadian provinces, the Church of Christ donates boxes of food items to the Safe Harbor Homeless Shelter in Red Deer, Canada. Eagle News correspondent Tiffany Alisasis reports.
Today we are here in Red Deer, Canada. Members of the Church of Christ donate relief boxes for the Safe Harbor Homeless Shelter.
Micaela Pedirnos, a member of the church, explains her experience and the impacts felt in today's outreach.
I feel very happy that we were able to be a part of an event such as this. It's really good to see everybody being united and coming together to help people who are in need. I think this is a very beneficial event for the community, especially Red Deer, because they are able to see the Church of Christ and our events that we take a part in and how united we are as a congregation and as a district.
Safe Harbor also provides affordable housing to people transitioning away from homelessness. Joyce Venturina shares why the Church of Christ has events like this.
Well, it's part of the commandment of God. We were told to also help other people, not just the people in the church. So as members in the Church of Christ, it is important for us to follow this duty as well.
Dale Vargas, a minister of the church, tells how they prepared for this event.
Well, we had our devotional prayers, and also through our group overseers, we were able to visit all the brethren, and all the families were able to give donation goods. Well, we believe that this is the second greatest commandment, to help our neighbors and to love them. And we're not just feeding them with the words of the Lord God, but also food for their physical bodies.
Church members from Red Deer, Rocky Mountain House, and Panoka worked together to collect food and clothing donations for the Safe Harbor Society.
Despite the cold weather, it doesn't stop the members of the Church of Christ from doing good for their community. Reporting from Red Deer, Canada, I am Tiffany Alisasas, and I'm 1 with 25.
Thanks, Tiffany. That is today's Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Join us tomorrow for the weekend edition. Visit our websites at Eaglenews.PH and EagleNewsLive.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. Thank you for watching. I am Melissa Gonzalez, Manglik Mott, 1 with 25.